Good morning, everyone. Hope you're well today. So my name is Andrew Crampton, Principal Systems Engineer within Fortinet. As Jim alluded to, SASE is one of my subject matter area expertise areas. So a wealth of information from when SASE was sort of first coined by Gartner back in August 2019, so nearly 4 years ago. If you require any further information after this presentation, please reach out to Innovation Martelsham or go directly to fortinet.com where we have a wealth of information. The agenda today, so we're going to go through the customer challenges that we see with secure SD-WAN and the journey to SASE. Quickly touch on the Fortinet security fabric. We could spend many hours on that, but I'm only going to touch on that specifically pertaining to secure SD-WAN and SASE. Look at secure SD-WAN and what we also call secure SD branch as well. Zero trust network access, and then finally sort of wrapped up throughout the whole presentation, looking at SASE and what we call from ourselves FortiSASE. So customer challenges, hopefully these challenges are not new to yourselves. The first one on the left-hand side, so inefficient, redundant, and insecure network access. So traditional, let's say, challenges that customers, enterprise that see from a LAN and WAN perspective. Problems that sort of arise from that as well. So when we look at VPNs, so traditional VPNs, they're not very granular. They're basically going to encompass or encapsulate all the traffic. So for every application, it's going to be encompassed within that. One way that we can address that, and we'll come on to that, is with zero trust network access. For the work from anywhere users, so we've moved from work from home, but work from anywhere, how do we provide the same security posture that those users would have within their office environment? Because when you're out traveling, maybe the device that's being used, maybe the security posture of the device does not meet corporate compliance regulations. So how do we secure that? And then finally, I guess over the last few years, and specifically during the COVID pandemic, the epidemic of ransomware, the growth, proliferation of ransomware has exploded. So how do we protect against that as well at the same time? So just to touch on the security fabric, so at the heart of the security fabric, you can see this thing called FortiGuard threat intelligence. So within Fortinet, we have a skilled team of researchers looking at the threat landscape, working with law enforcement agencies, working with other hardware and software vendors to get all that intelligent information that we then disseminate throughout the security fabric to our, namely FortiGate devices, but to other products that exist or platforms that exist within the portfolio. Those threat feeds can also be shared with other external parties as well. So we talk about broad landscape, broad threat landscape, broad visibility of that threat landscape, integrated in the sense that these different components within the security fabric can talk to each other. And the item that we'll be talking about today is secure networking. So in the bottom left-hand side, so all that threat intelligence is shared within the secure networking portfolio. And then automated in the sense that we have an open ecosystem, which is noted on the bottom right-hand side, where we have Fabric APIs into a variety of different partners, different cloud platforms as well. So providing a rich, extensible ecosystem of threat intelligence and essentially a cybersecurity posture assessment for those different devices that connect into the network. So namely from a secure networking perspective, so the diagram in the middle showing two different elements. On the left-hand side, we look at enterprise networking. So traditionally, it lacks awareness across the network, lacks awareness in the sense of cybersecurity, threat intelligence, checking the posture assessment of those devices and users as they connect into the network. Well, from a Fortinet perspective, we can cover that in a variety of different ways. One is with our switching portfolio. So from a wide perspective, devices, those devices can be corporate devices, desktop devices, printers, but they can also be IoT or potentially OT type devices, depending on the environment. Likewise, from a Wi-Fi perspective, those wireless devices connecting into the network, be it IP cameras, and once again, those IoT type devices connecting in. We also provide 5G solutions. So when you look at it from a secure SD-WAN perspective, there may be a location where a traditional, let's say, fixed line circuit can't be delivered in time. We have a solution for that using FortiExtender. And then also just from a traditional routing capability perspective. So if you're looking to replace a CE device from another vendor, then the FortiGate firewalls do provide standard CE capabilities. So all the standard routing protocols are supported within the platform, no additional license required for that. And likewise, from an SD-WAN perspective, there's no additional license to provide that capability. On the right-hand side, so the cybersecurity services, so a whole raft of different services that can be subscribed to, anything from application visibility to AV to IPS to sandboxing that can be subscribed as part of the secure networking journey. So, and then looking right at the middle, so FortiOS, that's the operating system or the security operating system that is used on these FortiGate devices. These FortiGate devices can be physical appliances or they can be virtual appliances running in your private cloud environment or in the public cloud environment, providing network firewall capabilities, the secure SD-WAN and the secure SD branch when that's coupled with the switching and Wi-Fi capabilities. Universal Zero Trust Network Access will come onto, and the SASE will come onto as well, but also other things like network access control when you're looking to, let's say, connect third parties, corporate devices, corporate users, but once again, those IoT or OT type devices into the environment. So what does this actually bring? Well, it reduces the complexity, eliminating multiple products from different vendors, because within the security fabric, we can deliver those solutions. From a single pane of glass perspective, we can manage these different components. From a end-to-end digital experience monitoring, so when we sort of tie this in with FortiMonitor, a thing called digital experience monitoring or synthetic transaction measurement, we have the ability to check on the experience of the user, essentially end-to-end experience monitoring. And then obviously, when you bring this together from a single vendor, single pane of glass, and also from a single support system, then it reduces the cost to deliver the solution as well. Just looking at from an industry recognition perspective, so this is just one of the Magic Quadrants from Gartner, a leading industry analyst, and this one pertains to secure SD-WAN, or the WAN edge is what Gartner previously called this. Fortinet has been named a leader for the third time as of 2022, and hopefully going into 2023, the tail end when the next Magic Quadrant comes out, that Fortinet are still seen as a leader in the SD-WAN Magic Quadrant. So looking at tight integration, so when we start to bring all these different components together, so on the far left-hand side, the Zero Trust Network Access, and we'll go through that in a bit more detail. The wireless LAN capabilities, so with the AP portfolio, the LAN capabilities with the FortiSwitch capabilities, the standard next generation firewall capabilities that you get with the FortiGate firewall, and then augmenting that with the secure SD-WAN capabilities, so providing that redundant capability in the sense of using multiple access circuits, determining the packet loss, the latency, the jitter of those of the applications riding over those transport layer circuits, and then making intelligent decisions which way that traffic should be steered. And then finally, from a wireless WAN perspective, providing the 3G, 4G, and 5G connectivity to bring that all together when we look at it from a secure SD-WAN or from a secure SD branch perspective. The nice thing about this, all of these different components are managed together and then essentially powered by FortiOS to provide that threat intelligence, the security that is required in a modern enterprise. So Fortinet stands more than just for technology innovation. So we did make a public announcement just nearly a month ago in our 5th generation of what we call the SOC family, and this time it's called the SP5, so the security processor, and the 5th generation of that. What that brings to the table, especially in this day and age of the cost of electricity, power consumption, reducing that power consumption bill, is very high performance ASIC technology at a very cost effective and low energy consumption footprint. So that means that we're able to provide a very small form factor devices with very high performance, but at the same time reducing the power consumption to essentially deliver these services. We can do that with the smaller devices, but we can also do that with our high-end devices, but once again, using this ASIC technology to essentially reduce that power consumption. One thing that Fortinet is also sort of leading the industry from is, as you've probably heard, there is a massive cybersecurity skills gap within the industry. What Fortinet has done for the last few years now is opened up its training academy, what we call the Network Security Experts Academy. So there is a wealth of information, there are certification tracks that you can complete that are freely available to customers, to our partners as well. And then finally, just from a threat landscape perspective, working with a variety of different agencies to essentially make the internet a safer place to be, spending a lot of time working within FortiGuard labs to essentially look at the next generation threats that are on the landscape. The customer challenges, so from an SD-WAN and an SD branch perspective, yes, we can address that with the FortiGate secure next generation firewalls providing the secure SD-WAN capabilities. But there's still some problems that exist. So traditional VPNs not giving broad access, well, giving broad access to every application, no corporate next generation firewall for those remote users, and then once again, the ransomware challenge. So how do we address that? So on the screen at the moment, there's essentially two different analysts. So on the right-hand side is Gartner, and on the left-hand is Forrester. So Gartner talk about this thing called SASE, phrase coined back in August 2019, which stands for Secure Access Services Edge. Noted in the middle on the right-hand side, it does talk about this thing called SSE. SSE is basically SASE without the SD-WAN component, because sometimes some vendors can't offer the SD-WAN component, or all they can offer is the SD-WAN component, and then it may require a partnership with another vendor to provide those other SASE capabilities. So SASE is seeing everything from a cloud delivered, let's say, native security perspective. On the left-hand side, Forrester see it from a slightly pragmatic view. Some of the security services will be delivered in the cloud, and that could be the secure web gateway capabilities, the CASB capabilities, or potentially the zero trust network access capabilities. But then they also still see the need for on-prem convergence as such. And that could be the zero trust network access. It could absolutely be the SD-WAN component. And once again, it could be from a next generation firewall perspective. So two different views. Gartner seeing everything delivered from the cloud, but Forrester seeing sort of a hybrid environment, cloud and on-prem delivered security. From a Fortinet perspective, so when we look at this from a phased approach, so starting off on that journey with secure SD-WAN and secure SD branch, which we can deliver. Next is moving into the zero trust network access component. And that's for both the private application access, but also potentially for the public application access as well. So checking the posture of the device, the user, and just making sure that user does have the correct privileges to access that application, be it in the private cloud or the public cloud. And then finally, FortiSASE or a SASE solution to deliver essentially security for those remote users. So how do we go about delivering that? So firstly, what is zero trust network access? Zero trust network access is essentially a component of what we call the zero trust edge. Specifically here, we're looking at the network access element. So we need to verify the user. So who is that user? Is it a corporate user? Is it a third-party user? Maybe it's a headless device, so there is actually no user behind this. Verify the device. So is it a corporate device? Is it a third-party device? Is it a headless device? So maybe it's an IoT type device. Verify the security posture, and there's a variety of different means that we can do that. Is the user logged into the correct domain? Is the device that the user is using, is it patched correctly? Does it have the current AV signatures? Are there specific registry keys that exist on the platform that need to be enabled before we sort of verify the security posture of that device? And then essentially enable least privilege access. So if it does not meet any of those requirements, it does have some access to the network if you deem so, and it may be through some sort of secure portal to essentially access a subset of applications. From a Fortinet perspective, we look at it as a universal zero trust network access. Universal in the sense that it doesn't have to be a user in the corporate environment. So it could be a user, once again, working from anywhere. It doesn't matter where the applications are delivered. So those applications could be in a data center, so in a private cloud environment, or it could be in the public cloud. So maybe it's software as a service, or maybe it's part of an infrastructure as a service application. So it doesn't matter where that user is. Going through what we call the application gateway. And that application gateway is once again a FortiGate firewall, essentially checking the posture, getting the threat intelligence telemetry, the telemetry of that device, and then making an intelligent decision to see if that device, that user, is allowed to access that application. So customer challenges, so the SD-WAN component, yes, we can address that. The Zero Trust Network Access component, yes, we can absolutely deliver that. Still two remaining challenges, so those remote users and then the ransomware challenge. How do we address that? So introducing FortiSASE. So as you're probably or maybe familiar, SASE is not a point product, it is a solution architecture. It does encompass a variety of different things, and going back to the original definition of Gartner back in 2019, they call out sort of core capabilities, recommended capabilities, and optional capabilities. Of all those different components, Fortinet actually has a solution available today to deliver those components. It may not be in a single pane of glass because not everyone can, not anyone, to be honest, can deliver a single pane of glass SASE solution today. But from a core capability perspective, yes, Fortinet can deliver those components. From a Fortinet perspective, we talk about secure internet access. So that's essentially safe browsing for those remote users, be those users working from anywhere once again. Secure private access to corporate applications, and the private access component is where the SASE infrastructure is essentially provides a connector to your existing Fortinet or FortiGate estate. So providing a conduit between the SASE infrastructure and your private enterprise infrastructure to give access to those corporate applications. And then finally, the secure SaaS access. So essentially a CASB or a cloud access security broker to provide connectivity to those cloud applications. So secure internet access for remote users is part of the agent that is deployed. So it provides the malware, it provides the ransomware prevention. So looking for those known threats, but also the capability for those zero-day threats when we start integrating with the sandboxing capability. One key thing in this day and age for, I guess, for any security vendor, pretty much 95% of the public traffic on the internet is now encrypted. So what we can deliver with the SASE offering is that SSL deep inspection. So essentially looking at that traffic from the end user going through the SASE platform to the end destination to see if there's any potentially malicious content, to see if there's any data exfiltration, and we can block that. So essentially having that visibility of the traffic as it leaves the user into the SaaS-based applications or to the public internet. And then once again, tied from a leading security services perspective, essentially powered by FortiOS with that same threat protection that you get with a next generation firewall from Fortinet. So what do we actually deliver within SASE when we look at it from a cloud delivered security model? So we provide web content filtering or URL filtering. So users going off to websites, off to content, essentially blocking that access if the reputation of that website is not deemed high enough. DNS filtering, so potentially things like domain name generation when used in attacks or C2C, so command and control connectivity, blocking access to that, both from a botnet perspective, IP reputation, so the reputation of websites based on their IP address, and then also finally from an IPS perspective, so any sort of threats that may be, let's say, born within the network, protecting against those threats as well from a SASE solution perspective. From a secure private access perspective, so this is where we start to integrate with the SD-WAN component. So this provides the secure cloud and data center application access, providing high granular access control. So similar to what we can do from a remote user perspective, going to the public internet, we can also control this for that remote user accessing those corporate applications once again, and then providing that true connectivity from an SD-WAN perspective, or tying the potentially not deploying SD-WAN, but just using IPsec connectivity from a FortiGate device into the FortiSASE infrastructure. And then finally, zero trust network access. So when you want to secure the device, the user, and make sure the application they're going to access is privileged access, then we can do that with the zero trust network access component with FortiSASE. And likewise, we can also do that from an SD-WAN perspective. So you can augment SD-WAN with the zero trust network access, or maybe just use zero trust network access without SD-WAN, or just using SD-WAN to provide access to those internal corporate applications. So there's a solution to cater for those different requirements. And then use case 3, this is from a SaaS perspective, so accessing all those different SaaS-based applications. Well, how do you secure or check the posture once again of the user accessing or trying to access those applications? So essentially cloud application access control using a CASB. From Fortinet, we have 2 solutions to address that. So one natively within FortiSASE, or we also have API integration with another platform, what we call FortiCASB. So 2 ways of addressing that secure access to those applications in the public cloud environment. Once again, providing that deep control with the deep visibility of the traffic it goes to those SaaS-based applications to potentially block to certain sub-applications. Let's say from a Microsoft Online perspective, not allowing access to SharePoint, for example, we have the ability to control that as well. And then finally, the unified agent. So the agent that's installed on the endpoint, which is namely called FortiClient, providing that endpoint protection, but a lot of other capabilities, the zero-day threats, the zero trust network access component as well. So from a FortiSASE perspective, just some takeaways. One, in the sense that it provides consistent security everywhere. So from a cloud delivered managed service, so secure web gateway capabilities, firewall as a service, CASB, integration into the broader security fabric. So when we look at the zero trust network access, but also the SD-WAN integration. And then just from a leading security enterprise security perspective, it is powered by FortiOS. And as mentioned at the very start, it does provide that threat telemetry information from our colleagues within FortiGuard Labs. So the challenges to address the secure SD-WAN and SD-branch component, the zero trust network access component has now been addressed, and the SASE component for those work from anywhere users has now been addressed with FortiSASE. But finally, there's still one problem to be addressed. So how do we address that? There's 2 ways to address this. One is potentially when you've got a complex multi-vendor environment. Well, sadly, that does introduce gaps. It does introduce gaps from a threat landscape perspective, potentially from a skilling of individuals within the organization. Well, how do you sort of bring that together? And this is where Gartner call out something else as well. So single vendor SASE. Well, once again, Fortinet can deliver that, and essentially FortiOS everywhere. So FortiOS being delivered in the private cloud environment, the public cloud environment. In the public cloud environment, that could be next generation firewalls or FortiGate VMs, securing those applications, securing those workloads. In the public cloud, likewise in the private cloud environment. It provides that native integration. So if you have got those FortiGate VMs in the public cloud, those can be, let's say, integrated into a secure SD-WAN environment as well. So providing secure tunneling into those applications for those corporate users, but also for those users working from anywhere. From a management plane perspective, so if you're looking at a SaaS-based service to deliver the management, well, we can do that within FortiCloud, or taking that sort of on-prem with FortiManager and FortiAnalyzer, what we call the Fabric Management Center. So essentially, at the end of the day, providing unified policy and unified posture across the threat landscape. So customer challenges, we've addressed the secure SD-WAN and the SD-branch element, the zero trust network access. So as opposed to using IPsec tunnels, we're essentially just using your standard TLS tunnels. Similarly, going off to a banking website, so only doing it at the application layer, so granular application control. Protecting those users when they're working from anywhere. So when those users are not in the corporate environment, or we can do that with SASE. And then finally, FortiOS everywhere. So wherever the user is, wherever the application is, protecting that user and the application from those internal threats, but also these external threats at the same time. So thank you for attending today. If you do require any further information, please check our page on Innovation Martlesham. But also, if you're looking for a lot more information, please check fortinet.com or please reach out to myself. So thank you.